My sweet cherry pie recipe with frozen cherries is easy and delicious. I already did the sour cherry version, so now I'm doing the sweet cherry version. For those of you who do not know, there are two types of cherries. Sour cherries like Montmorency or Morello cherries are tart. They are mostly used for baking, and in the United States, a lot of them are grown in Michigan and Door County, Wisconsin. On the other hand, sweet cherries like Bing, a lot of them are grown in Washington State, and they're used for fresh eating. Both of them can be used to make pies, but the pies are definitely different. For the sweet cherry pie, you will need 3 cups or 24 ounces or 680 grams of frozen sweet cherries that have been thawed. You will need half a cup, or as I measure, 120 grams of dark brown sugar, half a cup, or as I measure, 105 grams of white sugar, along with 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt, 80 grams or 8 tablespoons of cornstarch, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, and half of a teaspoon of almond extract. To make the sweet cherry pie filling, I'm just going to mix everything together. I know the almond extract may raise a few eyebrows, but almond extract is in a lot of cherry recipes. Cherry trees and almond trees are related botanically. And actually, if you ever buy almond extract and you open the bottle and smell it, it smells a lot like cherries. You would be surprised. So definitely do not leave out the almond extract. Like I said, it's in a lot of cherry pie recipes, and it definitely helps to bring out the flavor. And I should have broken up some of the brown sugar clumps. All I'm going to do is just keep mixing until the filling is combined. I have my 9-inch par-baked pie crust over there, 350 for 5 minutes. My sweet cherry pie filling is now mixed and ready to go into my par-baked pie shell. Once the cherries are in, be sure to spread them out to make sure they are evenly distributed, and then get ready to put on the top crust. Now that the cherries are in the pie shell, it's time to put on the top crust. As always, I roll out my pie crust between 2 pieces of wax paper. If you buy it, it's probably going to come between 2 pieces of wax paper or plastic. Roll off 1 piece and then grab the pie crust by the plastic or wax paper, flip it over, and just put it on top of the pie. Try to center it as much as possible, moving it slightly if needed. And then once it's where you want it, just simply pull off the wax paper. Like this. And then any overhanging crust, just take your knife and cut it off. Once the excess crust has been cut off the pie, just go around with your fingers and seal the edge by pinching. I finished sealing the edges. Now it's time to cut some vents. Just like with all fruit pies, as the fruit filling cooks, it's going to release steam. That is going to push the top crust up, and it may cook in a dome shape. Unfortunately, the cherry filling won't rise as well, so you may be left with a hollow space between the domed crust and the fruit filling. In order to prevent that, the steam needs a way to escape. So I took a ruler, I found the center, and I poked a hole with a toothpick as close to the center as possible. And now I'm just going to use my ruler to try to cut some air vents. You do not have to be as perfect as I am, but I like to make a design with the vents. I finished cutting the slits, in the top of my sweet cherry pie. So before it goes into the oven, I'm going to sprinkle it with 2 tablespoons of sugar. I'm doing white sugar. You could do half white, half brown, or all brown, whatever you want. This is just going to give it a bit of extra crunch. This pie is going to go into a 350-degree oven, uncovered, for I'm guessing 55 minutes. My sweet cherry pie just came out of the oven. It was in at 350 for 54 minutes. Honestly, I think it could have gone for 55, but it started to boil over here on the side. So I said, you know what, I'll just take it out. This sweet cherry pie was incredibly delicious. I did a sour cherry pie earlier this summer, and honestly, I think I prefer the sweet cherry pie. It reminds me more of the cherry pies I had when I was growing up. Although this pie was definitely sweet, I think that the complexity of the brown sugar helped to tone down the sweetness, along with the bit of lemon juice. The almond extract played an important role as well. It really helped to bring out the cherry flavor, so if you make this pie, don't forget it. However, one thing that I didn't really like about this pie was that the filling wasn't quite as gelled as it usually is in my pies. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't watery, but as you can see, it oozed a little bit. Actually, I have to confess that this was the second sweet cherry pie recipe that I did this summer, because the first one was really runny inside. The first pie was the same, except that I had more lemon juice. I couldn't understand what went wrong, so I did some research on Google, and it turns out that lemon juice, if you add too much, it can negatively affect the thickening power of cornstarch. So that's why for the second attempt, I cut down on the lemon juice. However, I still was not satisfied because, as you know, I'm pretty serious about my pies, and I actually made a third pie. I used 12 tablespoons of cornstarch, and although it was definitely gelled, it was kind of dry inside. In all honesty, dry was kind of an understatement. It was almost like eating cherry flavored chalk. Although I did consider making a fourth sweet cherry pie using 10 tablespoons of cornstarch in between the 8 I used for this pie and the 12 I used for the chalk dust pie, I decided against it, not only because I was getting tired of cherry pies, but also because sometimes I think that not only in the kitchen, but in life in general, you should strive for being really good and doing a good job, but not necessarily perfection. Striving for perfection will just drive you crazy. However, this sweet cherry pie recipe with 8 tablespoons of cornstarch tastes really, really good. In a few places around the edge, it was starting to get kind of dry. So honestly, I think that if I really wanted a perfectly gelled sweet cherry pie, I would probably need to experiment with other thickeners. But like I said, my goal is to have something that tastes really good and looks presentable, but not necessarily perfect. This pie tastes perfect, and in all honesty, that's all that matters. So, if you're looking for a sweet cherry pie recipe using frozen cherries, be sure to give this one a try. I know you'll love it just as much as I did. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.